It's wonderful to be here with all of you. The ripples of this powerful midday sit have reached far and wide, everyone, just so you know, that you're coming together in this sangha, in this tzibur, in this, this whole that is greater than all of its parts has reached so many and is providing so many people with support, all of those who are here, and to the wonderful IGS team. There'll be a sit with the Romumu Yeshiva on June 14th. It'll be an in-person on-site sit up at Isabella Friedman from June 14th through June 20th, and all of Romumu's Yeshiva programming, Torah and sitting and prayers also available as well. So let's start with just a little melody here for gratitude. La da 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 dum da da na Moneani. I am grateful. Ruach Hai Vekayam. Ay da 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 da. Lai da da da. Lai da da. Didi da 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 da. Hi ya da. Hi da 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 da. La da 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 dum. La la da dum. La la da dum. So in a moment, we're going to be sitting together. I just wanted to do a brief text study with you, as you'll see on the screen in front of you. And I hope you'll see a simple but profound insight of the rabbis into the nature of gratitude and into the nature of blessing practice. And it opens up, this very brief teaching, opens up for all of us, I think, a deep insight into what our tradition, the Jewish tradition, thinks is happening when we bless. What is the contemplative element of blessing itself? And so on the screen in front of you, you can see source 1 from the Talmud, where my favorite rabbi named Rabbi Meir, whose name means illuminated one. The illuminated Rabbi Meir said, a person is obligated to recite 100 blessings every day. That's the RDA for blessings, 100 blessings a day. And the rabbis, as they're wont to do, look for a biblical verse to hang their insight onto. And so he finds one, and it's in Deuteronomy. And there in the book of Deuteronomy in chapter 10, Moses says to the people, Ve'ata Yisrael, and now Israel, Ma, what? Ma, does the Lord, what does the source of life require of you? Really, it means ask of you, Shoel. And Rabbi Meir interprets the word Ma, which is what, right? What? He interprets it as Me'ah, 100. How does he get from what to 100? He puts a little aleph inside of the word Ma, which is what. What in Hebrew is memhe, but when you put in the unspoken aspirant, the first letter, which is, of course, unity or mystery, when it impregnates, as it were, the word Ma, what becomes blessing. The source of 100 blessings, says Rabbi Meir, is the power of seeing and interrogating what is the nature of our experience. Inside of every what is a little unspoken mystery called Aleph. And he turns what into 100. Every what holds within it the question itself is curious. It invites investigation, like the Buddha said. And so this is called normal mysticism. Rabbi David Wolpe quotes Max Kedushin, who says that Judaism is invested in being a normal mystic. And what does it mean on the middle of a Wednesday to stop midday and to watch the breath or to notice what is available and say, what is it? What is this breath? What is this sensation? What is this moment? This what in our tradition is the source of all wisdom. The mystics call chokhmah, wisdom, koach ma, the power of what? So as we turn towards a 15-minute sit in wherever you are, whatever you're doing, what you are, what is the nature of this day, this particular moment in time, the particular place you're in. Every sit, every time we turn our attention towards the present moment is an invitation to locate the question, which is what? What is this? What is this discomfort? What is this depression? What is this sadness? What is this confusion? What is this joy? And with loving awareness, touch that with great compassion and great spaciousness, as if each and every thing that arises for us is like a child asking us to bring attention and saying, what is that, Abba? What is that, Ima? What is that? And we sit and listen together. So I'll ring a bell, and in 15 minutes, the bell will ring again. And I hope that in your exploration, you'll be present with whatever is arising. That's just the midway bell. There's another 10 minutes. Na 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 nine 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 hi 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 na nine hey na nine nine na nine 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 na na nine na nine 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 hey na 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 nine 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 Mode ani Mode ani. In gratitude for all of you who sat with whatever was arising with compassion and awareness, bringing to fruition the blessing, abundance of what? For that Kiddusha, for that holiness. Great thanks. Mod Ani.
Mark, you need to unmute. Mark, we can't hear you.
How about now?
There you go.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rabbi David Ingber, for leading us so beautifully in this practice of of what is right now. Friends, let's bring that into supporting those of us who are in mourning, who are observing yard sites, who are carrying the burden of grief, as we offer an opportunity to seal our practice with Mourner's Kaddish, and invite those of you who would like to share names, name or names of anyone you're holding in your heart today in the chat box now or after we recite Kaddish, and invite you to join me in rising in body or in spirit. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabba,
Amen.
Yamad, Yirach, Hey, Yamav, Hey, Hayekon, Yomei, Hayek, Israel,
Agalah
Ba'alazman,
Karik
Karim,
Amen.
Amen.
Yishmir
Shemei
Rama
Rabba,
Yitbarach Arvishma Ikadar Shmeid Kudsha Briku Leilami Katavish Kata Venechemata Miranda Belma Yehi Shlama Rabbi Shamaya Late Israel
Israel.
Ose Shalom Uyas Hoinu Kol Israel Imru
Amen.
Amen.
Friends, thank you so much, as always, for joining us today. As always, you're invited to stay on for some conversation with our teacher for today, Rabbi David Ingber, about the teaching and the practice, chance to reflect on our practice together. I want to thank Leora Catherine Gale for sponsoring today's practice in honor of her teachers, Rabbi Joshua and Vanessa Bodiger, teachers, friends, and spiritual guides for all they've done for the Jewish community and beyond in Ashland, Oregon, before they make their eastward journey to New York State. And thanks so much for supporting that practice. And Adi, thank you for holding our text space with skill and grace as always. For those who are leaving us now, wish you a safe and healthy rest of the day. Hope you can join us tomorrow. Emily Hertzlin will be leading us tomorrow in practice. On Friday, Cantor Karen Spencer Shapiro, Will Boulevard Temple will again be leading us as we sit into Shabbat in this short week. And just a reminder, next week, a full week of practice with Rabbi Sam Feinsmith. For those who are staying on, if you have a question for Rabbi Ingber, please put it in the chat box. If you can, preface it with question. And David, I have a question. It just occurred to me. First of all, it's a great teaching, and I always appreciate the teachings that are simple, accessible, and the light bulb goes off. Like, oh, of course, it's simple. But this question about this idea of just asking ma, what? It occurred to me there are so many it all depends on the intonation. We're in a very stressful time. So, it could be what with 3 question marks and 5 exclamation points after it. Like, what? Or what? But really, this is a simple what. What is this, right? So I actually wanted to invite you to, dig in a little bit deeper about like, what's the intonation as we hear ourselves ask ourselves that question as an anchor to come back to that. Just remember, just what? What is this? What is this sensation? What's this thought? What's this feeling? What is this, what's this breath right now? Maybe comment a little bit about the many forms of what can be, right? And then I just wanted to segue into, of course, we're in a particularly challenging time, as we've been in any number of ways for a long time, but we have a particular challenge of what's going on, and wanted to see if maybe you say a few words about applying that practice to what we're dealing with right now in terms of all the news and and our connections with Israel and the complexities of what we're dealing with. How do we apply the wisdom of Ma to this as normal mystics?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, thanks, Mark, for your question. And thanks also to Teddy, who asked also for a deeper understanding of what Rabbi Meir. This Rabbi Meir, it's significant that he's the one who authored this kavanah, this intention in the Talmud, because, as you know, Mark, Rabbi Meir was very fond of the letter Aleph. In fact, his name, Aleph, Meir, points to a kind of fascination with that letter and with its meaning. He even interprets the word in the beginning of Genesis that describes the pelts of skin, the leather ore that the first humans in that myth wore. He had his own Torah, and he put the Aleph there instead of the ayin. And he said that they were wearing garments of light. So he's really very connected to this letter. And its meaning for me personally in my practice and in this question and for blessing is maybe that the intonation or the way that we say what, at least the way he's reading it, is not what as in a question, but more as just the fact of it. And in that way, he very much reminds us of the Buddha's, the way that the Buddha, his name was Gautama, but that's a joke, Gautama. But the way that the Buddha interrogated experience and said, let's move away from lema and lama, why, and just notice what arises, not why it arises. And so the what of ma, in this case, would be just noticing sensation and noticing awareness that is brought to crisis or towards trauma or towards drama, and just noticing that. And in some sense, the promise is that if we don't react on it, but we just notice it, that noticing itself plus the Aleph, which is maybe breath, maybe spaciousness, maybe awareness, that can actually bring a better world, because so often we move from what is to what we want to do about it and how we want to fix it and what we should do about it. And that's very natural. And maybe the spaciousness of adding an Aleph or adding a breath into every what is to say, before you react and before you speak and before you, Like just notice what's coming up. And in that way, we can shortcut some of the karmic reactivity, some of the immediate ways, the habituated ways that we respond to everything, including for this present moment in Israel and Palestine. If we notice how frequently the storylines and all of the cause effects are so pre-programmed. Like, so our biggest question is, how do we get out of this cycle? And maybe Rabbi Meir and others are saying, in like IJS, Ramu Yeshiva, others are saying, there's no way to get out of the cycle until we're aware of what the cycle consists of in all of its attendant pieces and all the little pieces, right? Otherwise, we're going to keep doing it over and over again and over again.
Beautiful, beautiful. There is a question from Martha about if you add zeh to them, if you make it into a mazeh, which, throw you a softball here, because we're coming right out of Shavuot, so it feels like it would be good to connect this with, like, this is also kind of a practice that is conducive to, or we could say is revelatory, right? It's sharpening our perception of revelation, like what you just, that quote about the normal mysticism is about perceiving the divine in everything, right? And that practice you just described of the ma plus the aleph, what is, without the answer, not looking for an answer, just acknowledging the what is with some space, a little bit more spaciousness with the aleph, a little bit more light. Then there's some illumination perhaps about, oh, there's another way. Maybe there's another way, but we can't grasp for that other way immediately. So, but anyway, I was going to throw in, Martha's asking about zeh, and I know that zot, or maybe zeh too, is another name for the Shekhinah, or the divine presence, right? So mazeh or mazot could be a way of saying, like, I'm looking for the holiness, even in the difficulty and challenge of this moment right now.
Absolutely. Right. I think that, again, I think that the practice, as the Buddha said, and as Jewish mindfulness teachings as applied, and also kavanah, is to look deeply and not to be, right? The passive, what is not passive. It is actually attention. It's bringing attention to this thing. When Moshe turns to see the burning bush, right? The Nachmanides says, the Ramban says that it was always burning, right? But he noticed it. Like, there's something that he noticed that changed the course of his own life. And so the question for becoming those who are, living the path of Ma, it's interesting. Adam, humanity, Aleph Daled Mem is also Ma. Same gematria, same numerical value. Aleph Daled Mem is 45. Ma is 45. To be human is to ask this question existentially, writ large, and then moment to moment interrogating with patience and gentleness, not like, with furrowed brow, but like, just what is this? And my experience has been with mindfulness is that I begin to notice much, much more of my experience. I wake up more and more. As someone said, I don't lessen my pain, but I lessen my suffering. Because in many ways now I'm aware that I had a tooth extracted, and then throughout the sit it was throbbing, and I'm aware of that. I'm aware of my kids in the background who are coming in, and I'm aware of the thoughts that arise. And in the midst of all of this craziness, there is the still Aleph in the center of it saying, okay, what do I notice? And that's the motion moment. He's standing there, he sees this burning bush, a theophany, and he, was there forever until he noticed it. And so we are needing in this world more and more leaders who are aware of what is arising in them that moves them in the directions that, that they take. Right. So I think that, Mazeh is a great, Mazeh, what is this, and what is it asking of me in this moment?
Yeah. It's, the phrase that keeps recurring in mindfulness teachings is substituting curiosity for conviction. And we're already, like you said, we're so programmed, and then we are bombarded with stimuli that are intended to attach to those convictions, that is meant to provoke and to stimulate that what kind of reaction, right? Instead of what. So just ask you a comment on this, because I know you are making a lot of references to the Buddha and to Jewish mindfulness, and this is a huge topic. That we're not going to wrap this up in 5 minutes, but you so skillfully identified a basic mindfulness practice within Jewish tradition, and so I want to ask you actually a little bit about that, like. How do you toggle back and forth between the Buddhist aspect of the teaching and seeing this as really embedded and authentic in Jewish sources?
Yeah,
this is an hour-long interview.
Oh, it is. It is. I just finished an 8-week course on Judaism and Buddhism, and not surprisingly, there were 100 or so odd students in the class for 8 weeks. It was a topic that really. It hits to the core of what a lot of us are looking for, and a lot of the people who come to IJS and are seeking the inner place that is, the Buddha begins with, be a lamp unto yourself. He begins with that interrogation of his own experience, and he was decidedly not interested in all kinds of questions having to do with, like, the nature of the world and the cosmos and how did it get here. He wanted to remove the arrow in that wonderful parable. Of suffering, like who shot the arrow, and that didn't interest him. He wanted to know, how do we get the arrow out and heal. And so I think that in Jewish sources too, the turn towards the inside is where we have been for a couple of 100 years, right? That in the Hasidic revival, it was decidedly a turn towards the nature of divinity and the soul, and that interrogated and investigated and looked for God within. Tamur ukitov Adonai. Like, how do you taste and see something that it's written about in the book? But the Hasidim wanted to, like, how do you know that? There's a famous story from the Berdichever, one of the great Hasidic masters, Levi Yitzchak Berdichev, whose father-in-law was somebody who was decidedly skeptical of this new path called Hasidism. And the Berdichever had become a student of the Maggid of Mezrich, Dov Ber of Mezrich, and he would travel there frequently. And so once his father-in-law said to him, "No, so what's the big deal? Why are you getting on the flight and going all over to Mezrich to go study with some crazy rabbi? Why don't you stay here locally?" He said, "Well, in Mezrich, I know that there, they teach me that there's a God in the universe." And his father-in-law laughed hysterically. He called in one of the servants and said, he said, "Hey, do you know there's a God?" And she said, "Yeah, of course it's a God." So he turned to his son-in-law. He said, "What's the big deal? You have to travel 6,000 miles, whatever it is." Everybody here knows that there's a God. And he said to his father, he said, "Yeah, she says it, but in Mezrich, we know it." And the difference between saying something and knowing it, between reciting it, or between, the deep experiential knowing that Hasidism is inviting, and now Neo-Hasidism and these practices, they met the Buddha and it was a good shidduch. It's like the Buddha was saying, you don't have to read it in a book. And so were the Hasidim. They're saying, we don't want to read it in the book. We want to do it. What's the point of going to a synagogue somewhere in the suburbs where they read about Hasidism, right? And they tell you in the Hasidic text about dancing ecstatically because life is moving through your body, and you just read it in the text. And then if somebody gets up in the sanctuary, a dance broke out, So it's something very profound is happening, I think, in this wonderful cross-cultural dialogue. It feels to me so resonant and consistent. Like, I feel it's aligned. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, yes, that makes total sense, and that's great. That's great. Just to end, going back to the Talmud piece you brought, which is the prescription. I think people come across this a lot. The idea of you're supposed to say 100 brachot a day, right? And what this does is basically say, the form that can take is just 100 times a day, just say, ma plus the aleph, right? Just,
exactly.
Right? 100 times a day. Bring your practice into the rest of the day. So I want to end here by inviting everyone to consider doing that, for the rest of this day, to bring this practice into your day. And as we say, you have to test it out in your own experience, see if this is true for you, right? Does this shift things? Does this help us get out of the many vicious cycles that we are caught in our personal lives, collectively as a people, as a country, as a world. This is our hope and our bracha. So, David, thank you for that. That was beautiful. Just right for what we are dealing with right now. Friends, hope to see you tomorrow with Emily Hertzlin leading us to practice, and Friday with Carrot Spencer Shapiro. Thanks, Adi, as always. Thanks, Leora Catherine Kiel, for making this possible by sponsoring the practice today for all of us and honoring your beautiful teachers, Rabbi Joshua, Rabbi Vanessa. Many brachot to you folks. Good luck on your travels, your return back home. Looking forward to you seeing you on the East Coast. And be well, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
Much love to you, Mark.